Alright guys, so I'm catching up on our war videos. This was our war against Matrix. This ended up being a pretty close one, although we did pull out the win. It's been long enough, I don't think I have to hold anybody in suspense. This Tigra is fairly common here. I've mentioned that before. Yeah, you just use step backs. That honestly annoyed me that she caught me while I was dashing, but I didn't time it perfectly. C'est la vie. I do block her when I can, although of course parrying to reduce damage, because that lets me build my smolders, makes my temperature go down more slowly, and also makes my incinerates do more damage. I also threw that special too because I knew that it would give me a little bit of time to be backing her up during the arc overload when she would be unstoppable. Because of that, you saw I had plenty of room to back up for her L2, and thus I was safe and I could move on and finish the fight. Next up we have Sentinel on the next Masochism node. I was using Torch here because I knew he'd be triggering Masochism. I'm saving my pre-fight for a fight later. And I can't reverse his healing, but I also know that as long as I'm keeping Incinerates up, Torch is going to do plenty to stop the healing, and so basically we'll just be applying fewer Incinerates and doing a bit less damage once we get set up. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. I know Torch has enough damage. I blocked that L1 to build those 4 smolders, less for damage and more just because his smolders, like I mentioned on the last fight, keep temperature from dropping as quickly. I find this one of the most important things about using Torch, because it means that you have to spend less time messing around with landing and charging your heavies, and more time just applying his incinerates. I did still use that heavy, because now it's easy for me to get back up to 20, and I know that I'm going to have a while before it drops back into a zone that I'm not happy with, again because I have those 4 smolders. Like I said, I know that even with him eating some of my incinerates, Torch has more than enough damage for this, especially when we go into Nova Flame and start applying passive ones and Power Stings. So now we're moving into Section 2 here on Path 5. This is the Intercept node. I believe I made a significant mistake in here, but, you know, it's MODOK. Killmonger is not only good at taking MODOK, but is particularly good at intercepting, as we've covered several times so far. My whole strategy here is what it is normally with MODOK, except I can freely parry, which I'm not used to. And that is to build him to his L1, dodge it, get True Strike up, use my L1, and then use those counter punches to get an easy intercept. That'll turn off protection, both the node and the global's protection, and now this fight is under control. We're probably going to have to do that with the intercepts a couple more times, but the only way this can go wrong is if I end up taking a lot of hits to the face. See, I didn't actually have to intercept there. I could have parried and countered, but at this point I'm just so used to this rhythm against MODOK because I fight him so often on nodes where you either can't stun or can't rely on it, that I was just in the rhythm. Killmonger has good enough block proficiency. I don't think I end up using him again, but even if I had, that'd be like 1 level 3 potion if that. So like I said, I was saving my pre-fight for later. This is that fight. Because this is Redoubled Determination, you really do not want to be stacking a bunch of active debuffs on him, because then he will be gaining even more power. He's already a Mystic, which is annoying on its own, especially if you take hits to the face. And he would be hitting much harder, which could become a block damage problem. And it definitely would have hurt more when I did take those 2 hits to the face. Besides that, Sasquatch is just a tanky boy, and it is particularly nice to have my Nova Flames do extra damage and to have those Power Stings to detonate when he throws. One thing that almost caught me there, if you'll notice, I parried and then relied on it, or started to, right before his protection came back. Protection purifies all debuffs, including stuns, and that could have been ugly. So I know I have plenty of time. I have 4 minutes. He's down to 20% health. I'm just backing up. As I've explained before, if you wait out that heavy, even during Wrath of Tanarak when it's unstoppable, as long as you wait it out long enough, you can safely counter. So this might look a little bit risky, what I'm doing right here, because I am going for the Intercept, but I dueled Sasquatch several times before this, and I have a very good idea of where his windows are. I know that I just need to get one, but I also know that every one of those earlier attempts I took, I knew I would have time to recover. That let me get this one in. I can then throw the boosted L3 where it does way more damage than Torch's L3 normally does, and I'm still going to have time when he comes in to finish him off quickly. Not that I even needed to. So next up we have Namor on this Vigorous Assault node. I'm actually not sure what they were thinking placing him here, because as you'll notice, he does reflect the damage that my Incinerates are doing for that brief moment after I parry him because he was technically attacking. But, you know, Torch does more damage over time than almost anyone, and it's still not a lot of damage. Some people, I think, put champions here with passive regeneration effects, thinking that it makes them unblockable while they're regenning at all. Both since Namor's are so short, and because I think Matrix tends to be smarter than that, I don't think that's what happened here. I think they were just hoping that with his increased regen, he would last long enough to reflect enough damage to maybe catch someone. Honestly not sure, but I'm not using Torch again after this, and so I'm really not worried about this chip damage. We can't reverse his healing, or I'd be making a point to stay, even more aggressive, but we're doing plenty of damage and he's going down. I do like to throw my L3s on any node where I'm not facing a defender that's naturally giving me smolders. Whether that's by trying to incinerate me, by being a mystic, or having energy damage. I know that Namor is not going to naturally build smolders on my own, which means that without throwing that L3 and getting the 2 that it gives me, I'm going to have an extremely difficult time keeping temperature up. And as you can see, even with those 2, I kind of had to rely on the opening from my special 2 to get it back above 10. Now my Incinerates are lasting longer, now we're starting to do more damage. It also means that I'm taking more from his signature ability, but I'm still not worried, because he's down to 15%. He's not going to kill me before I kill him. And when you're looking at the last fight you're using a champion for, that's all that really matters. I was also pretty boosted because I was looking forward to this fight with Tigra. And I say looking forward as in apprehensively. Because you see there, that heavy counted for a rupture. But I know from experience that that's only because he was actually starting to charge at me. If you use Tigra on Terrax, you're basically relying on AI behavior to get those ruptures, and thus to get power from your damaging debuffs to fuel your specials, because this is polka dot power. Because I know that I'm not always going to be able to rely on him throwing those heavies and me being able to safely counter them. See, there I countered very quickly. I knew it would land, but because after his heavy animation ended, he just chilled there instead of starting to come forward, I didn't get those ruptures. While he's in his rock field, you tend to get more ruptures because he plays a lot more aggressively and he comes at you every chance he gets. But I knew that I was going to have to be careful, and outside of Rockfield, I couldn't be assured of getting these ruptures. I'd done enough duels to know where my windows were, and I knew that this fight wasn't going to be as easy as some are for Tigra, both here and against Cosmics in general. and so I was trying to be as careful as I could. I don't want to mess with his L2. I'm quite good at the evade, but if I'm wrong, I die. So I'm just backing off, even though it cost me my senses. I get those armor breaks up, I get those first few ruptures to give me power, and now I'm just backing up. I attacked once there to get that neutralized to keep that 1 sense up, but then I just backed off. So that L2 did not do nearly as much damage as it would have if I had also had Primal Sense up, but that's okay by me. I know that I am winning this fight, and kind of like I talked about on the last one, even though this is not an ideal matchup for Tigra, and even though I'm taking more damage than I would like to, I know that I'm going to kill him before he kills me. I know that Primal Sense is going to last long enough here, and I can intercept with my L2 and finish it. So despite how easy it looks sometimes when the fight goes perfectly, just keep in mind that's not necessarily the smartest place to send Tigra. I think next time we plan on using someone else. So next up we have Korg on Mixmaster. Apocalypse is obviously good for Korg because he can safely parry him, allowing him to break down the rock shield just with lights. However, there are still other potential issues. There's his L1, and one thing that you will see me not handle very well in this fight is the Thorns damage from other sources. I'm not going to be comboing him to get Thorns much, but I am going to sometimes counter his heavies or his specials, and to do that I will use a medium and take more damage than I would like. There are also a few times where I throw specials or heavies right before Rock Shield comes back or while it's still up, and the physical hits in those will also trigger Thorns. See, I should have done 3 there, because that would have made it easier to throw a heavy sooner. See, now I know I'm probably... Okay, I did get that one refreshed. By the way, this war you'll notice is against a different alliance. I realized after I had finished my last war video that I had left this one out of the Space Bastards. See, right there I threw that L2 just as his shield came back and took a whole ton of Thorns damage I did not need to take. Apocalypse is very good for this fight, and because he is so tanky, you're not likely to just die in like one Eaton combo the way that you might with somebody like Quake. But the flip side is that if you don't play it perfectly, like I definitely did not, then if you're using him against somebody else, which I was, this becomes a little expensive. See there, I just took Thorns 3 more times from finishing out that L2. I mean, he's going down. I'm not worried about dying. But as I'm going through this fight, I'm definitely thinking, well, this is more expensive than it should have been. You'll also see right here, his rock shield comes back, and instead of using 3 lights, I heavy cancel into an L1 again, taking literally thousands of damage I did not need to take. Anyway, hopefully my mistakes were educational for y'all, and I will see you next time.